Hello everybody, my name is Troublmaker, and there's a little bit of lacking Wargame playing going on. People are going to be waiting very close to the end, so I thought I'd take this time to do a short video reviewing the tactics and strategies deployed by Pik-As in this game that I just casted with fiva55 and Pik-As, and I focus a lot on what fiva55 did because it was very spectacular and very well done, using these gazelles, which of course is a very common tactic now. His deployment of infantry at specific points, his capturing of Echo and Juliet as his primary concerns. But I didn't really give a lot of attention to what Pik-As did, why it failed, and what he was planning to do. Now, we'll stop right away, and we'll see right off the bat that he's going for two flanks. He has one flank here, one flank here. They each have two different designs, and a lot of people do this kind of split. This group of infantry's job is to come along the road here and to flank. Is going to take position here and create a flanking location so that they can secure Juliet and make sure that command armors cannot fit into this location. By forcing the command out of this side of the river, they're forced onto this side of the river. What else is happening? We have a long string of tanks, one Tunguska, and nice bit of infantry, some support vehicles coming along this road. So this is a command snipe strategy. So if you were to run all the way down here with your army, and there's no command armor here, your infantry will catch it here. If there's no command armor there at all, you're ahead. It's a small thing, and it's actually a good tactic. The problem with Pik-As wasn't really the tactic so much as the execution. And that's really what we want to focus on here, is execution. You can see already we have a swing happening here, and the main army here. He's leading with these tanks, these KPZ T55s, and as you can see, fairly armored on the front, but not much on the rear, and that's why he's leading this tank, a nice 2 armor. They can soak a lot of hits, no stabilizers, however, and notice where it says optics, it says bad optics. That means that when they come up against an enemy, they're not going to be able to shoot at them until they're in range. And what you'll note here is a total lack of a recon unit. And this is a small but important switch on this play. It's good this tank is leading the charge, but there should be 2 to 3 recons heading in various directions to spot. Spotting is very, very important in these rushes, and it's important not to lose these recons. So keep in mind the very limited sight range and the lack of stabilizers. This means this tank, although it can take a lot of hits, will in fact get throttled quite easily by attack fire, and it won't be able to see far enough to hit infantry. And so as we're moving forward, we might note that our opponent has infantry set up, and it's not something that's visual. So we'll go just to the Pik-As camera right now, because that's really the only tactic we're caring about. And you can see the big giant flank of infantry is coming in. It has spotted a gazelle. This is a good opportunity to move 4 of these and try and pick one of these off. And the gazelles are giving adequate range for fiva55. He now sees everything. Everything. Maybe I have to go. Yeah. You can see the infantry moving on this side, and you can see a flank coming north. So he kind of knows all the enemy movements. Back to the Pik-As cam, who has absolutely no vision at this point. These SPWs have in fact moved in front. This is a small micro mistake. Note 1 armor on the front. It has slightly better optics, no stabilizers either, and a lower operational range. Should not be in front. It should be these KPZ T55s. Not the greatest armor in the game, but still some. Now he has the infantry in the front, and what does he see? Well, you can see 3 vehicles here. You can see 4 vehicles along this flank where this giant flank of units is coming, maybe to pincer off this Echo position. Keep in mind there's no command armor there yet. Everything seemingly is dealt with very effectively by fiva55, but Pik-As has this problem. He has an entire flank of units which he cannot see yet, all unknown, hitting from our eastern flank, and he has a giant cluster of units at the southern flank, and as you can see over here, there's also another unidentified unit here at the western flank. what he's actually doing is running his units into a bottleneck. Now let's go to the total cam and we'll see what he's actually wanting to do. The goal of this strategy is a command snipe. So he's supposed to run his units all the way through and just keep hitting until he finds a command armor. And if he gets the command armor, it's a huge, huge win. But if he just goes all the way through and finds nothing, it's a huge loss. It's a very risky play, but does have some credence and it does work. There is something wrong with the organization here. It should be all the tanks moving simultaneously together. There should be some recons, obviously. One here would be very good in this dense forest. And obviously this unknown here, which is, I think, an infantry carrier, should have some eyes there. Also note, he only has a single Tunguska anti-aircraft. He doesn't have any other anti-aircraft units. So all these helicopters that 555 is using are going to be much more effective. Also note, even if the enemy doesn't have helicopters, these anti-aircraft guns are very good because they can actually deal with infantry quite well. And just having 5 or 6 cheap anti-aircraft guns will make a world of difference. So moving forward this game, we're going to go in ultra slow motion. The immediate reaction right here, keep in mind that you will not play this game in slow motion, should be to maneuver these tanks off the road and try and line up these tanks effectively to fire together. He should be splitting off the tanks into smaller groups, and he should be using the move fast command on all these infantry at the very much same time. You want the infantry to land on top of all these anti-infantry vehicles, unfortunately, and just wipe them out. Take position. The goal here is take position of Juliet. And if you can get the infantry down without having them stunned from being destroyed, you can do this very effectively. There is no split here of KPC tanks. 555 is limiting these FJBs using the anti-infantry carriers, and he has lots of rockets firing at these tanks. And here's the bottleneck scenario, the one scenario you do not want to go into with this tactic. There is credence to actually pull back. There is credence to move into a cover location like these woods, and you do have adequate reason to just hold position. Currently, I'm looking at the stop here, Pik-As has great position. He has Foxtrot. His enemy does not have Juliet. He can move Alpha over to Golf, and his enemy only has Echo. He also has a lot of infantry on this other flank here, able to spot any kind of sneaky plays. As well, it appears these FJB anti-infantry units are dealing relatively well with these Gazelles. So he has a very good position on the map. So with that in mind, and keep in mind that these are split-second decisions, and these are things you have to practice and get used to. He doesn't actually have to commit to his attack. He can actually just move these tanks into wooded locations. He can take these infantry, drop them on the other side of the beach. He can even push a little bit into these woods areas, anywhere that's safe, and just deny this central location from the enemy. But instead, as we know what happens, he decides to rush all his tanks forward, as opposed to moving them into a cover location. And the end result is that these tanks are going to slowly get picked apart, and 555 has actually gained a very massive lead, when actually this should have been a pretty big win for Pik-As. There's only a few tank destroyers here, and they're not even good ones. Just these tows, which carry rockets, which have limited ammunition, and shouldn't be able to deal with. But because he's singling them in single file, in giant stacks of 4, they're able to do much, much more damage than they ought to. This is something that, if you're still in the tournament or you want to get better, is something you have to practice with against players, or just by playing matches. I know that 555 has a lot of high-level practice partners. He's practiced for almost every single type of rush in the game, and this is a particularly popular rush because it works. It works very well on newer players. Unfortunately, as he gets closer, I'm still on the Pik-As cam, he sees Chasseurs, VABs. At this point, he's not terribly behind. He can pull back all his units and not go for this all in. But he's committed. And that could be a huge, huge misstep. Now we go back up here. He still has his infantry trying to go for the initial plan, which was to go after Echo. They have been spotted. He doesn't have to commit to this. He can land his units, he can move around slower, but there's a ton of units here, which he can use. One big part of this game is that Wargame European Escalation is a game in which using your fingers is important, and if you are slow on the clicks, on the keyboard hits, this stuff happens, in which you are just slowly going to get chewed apart. And this is also a game where you have to always think to yourself, what am I doing now? If there's a point where you're doing nothing at all, then you're not doing it right. There's always, always, always something to do in this game. And slowly fiva55 takes the lead, and we see more or less that the game's pretty well over at this point, and Pik-As knows it. In fact, he all-ins 2 to 3 more times before he calls it quits. And every single one of his plans has been caught by fiva55. If you want to do this rush effectively, 1, the enemy cannot have infantry up front. If the enemy has infantry up front, you need a recon, because your tanks will be able to outrange these infantry. These infantry actually have anti-infantry rockets, I believe, and anti-infantry grenades, so they're not going to do a terrible amount of damage against this heavily armored tank. However, if you're able to spot this with a recon, you can actually micro these tanks away, and you can reposition them effectively. This is not my favorite style of attack, I will say right off the bat, but it does have a tactical reason behind it. Juliet was denied for a full 3 minutes. Economically, fiva55 is behind massively, and if Pik-As was actually just to slowly move his infantry up and keep his tanks in a good position, slowly reinforcing this with anti-aircraft, anti-tank, anti-infantry vehicles, you could actually secure this middle, and he could have moved on further to get higher quality units and get more higher quality wins. Instead, he went for an all-in. A lot of times when you're practicing a build, you have to get used to making good decisions. I mean, all-ins are not pass-fail. There are some middle grounds, and this is actually a match where a middle ground solution would work very well. He rushed forward. His enemy had mostly tank destroyers and infantry. He could have planted himself in the woods, got some recons, and just slowly sniped at the infantries. So hopefully this is a little bit helpful match analysis. Don't get scared away from this particular build order type. A lot of good players use this. It's just you have to practice the micro. And good luck to the remainder of you still left in the tournament. Thanks for watching.